Hello everyone, welcome to my vlog. So on today's vlog I would like to talk about composition. I've been chatting about some other elements of good headshot, such as background, face expression, lighting, but I didn't have a chance to talk much about composition. And also when it comes to the composition, I follow certain rules, and I just want to actually break this whole thing down. I have received several emails from fellow photographers, and they've been asking me some of those questions. Why do I compose those images the way I compose them? And it took me, I would say, few years to actually just figure this whole thing out. As someone said, a long time ago, some of those photography rules we're supposed to break them, but some of those rules we can definitely actually stretch a little bit, and then just break them and try to do something different. But sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. We have to be very careful what we do, because what can happen is that we can have perfect image, we can have great face expression, we have let's say beautiful lighting, everything kind of works, but there's still something wrong with the image, and that's probably is because we didn't compose the image the proper way. So I just want to talk about it today, and then just share with you I would say my understanding of the right composition for the good headshots. I'm sure everyone has own style in trying to do things different way and try to kind of create own style. But I'm gonna share with you guys my approach to composing my headshots. And then again, there's certain rules which I follow, and I just want to explain why I even use them, and what's the purpose of creating those images this way. And I'm sure by the end of this vlog, some of you guys will have a little bit better understanding why those images look the way they look and why they're supposed to look a certain way. So let's jump into it right away and start chatting about the composition. So composition, actually we can break down to three different things. So it's the focal elements, it's the structure, and then is the balance of the entire image. And those are three separate things which I actually focus on. But before we start chatting about those separate and different elements, let's start with what it even means to compose image certain way. So what is even composition? So composition is basically, so we have several different elements, and we have to actually put them together to make this image look, I have to say, a certain way. So there's a flow to it, there is some focal point, and then we want to make sure that the person who will be looking at the image will look at those things which we want them to look at. And in headshots there's not much of, I would say, crazy stuff we have to put together. Our goal is pretty much that the person will look at the face of the person. Okay, so let's start with focal elements. So in our case, of course, this is the face of the person, and specifically we want to make sure that the person who is looking at that image, the focal point will be the face and the eyes. And the way our brain works is that, the way we look at images, our eyes are always drawn to the brightest spot on the image. That's the way we look at the images. I'm sure if you guys actually even try to do a really simple test, just put certain, say, things on the image and just put somewhere like a bright point or bright dot on the image, you will see that your eyes gonna kind of be drawn into this point. And then that's basically what happened with the headshot. So when the person looks at the image, and then the eyes are the brightest point on the image, that will be the focal point. Another thing what we do in headshot photography is the sharpness of the focal point, the focal element, which will be the face. And that's why what we do is and specifically in my case, and I'm sure there's a lot of other photographers which has the same technique. What we do, we shoot very shallow depth of field. So what happens is the face of the person is entirely sharp, and the background is basically blurred, and that's also what's gonna draw the person to the face. So it's pretty kind of easy setup. We don't have to actually do too much to get the viewer to be drawn into the face. So basically we always try to make sure that the eyes are the brightest point on the image, as well the face is in focus, and then the rest of it is blurred. So that's what's going to make our, I would say, image well, properly composed, to make sure that we draw the viewer to the right spot on the picture. So the next thing is the structure. So basically, what is structure? Structure is basically we putting those elements in according to certain rules, and I follow basically 2 rules which are well known in photography. There is way more, but in headshots photography, that's basically 2 of them which I use to make sure that those images are properly composed. So those 2 rules are, the first one is the rule of thirds. So basically it's pretty simple, it's nothing complicated, and I'll show some examples. We want to make sure that our person or our subject is off the center. So that's the kind of the first rule which we want to follow. I also shoot horizontally, so that's also, I would say, make my images to actually shift the person to the left or the right much easier. With the vertical images, that will be a little bit much harder, and also that gives us ability to play a little bit with the negative space. So that's something also which helps that rule to enhance that composition. And another rule which I follow, and this is something which I discovered recently. I've heard about this rule, but I never use it in my images. But I actually one day didn't know why those images look certain way much better, and this is which is called golden rule, and I also show some example. And this is actually works beautifully for the headshots photography. And again, this is something which I actually discovered recently, and I didn't know if that golden rule will apply to headshot photography, but it works great. Not to mention that apparently that rule sometimes works, sometimes doesn't, and some photographers, they're even confused about this entire golden rule. But I found that as far as headshots photography goes, that rule is extremely helpful and make those images look stunning, and the composition of the image is great. So those are some examples why it works beautifully, and I'm sure when you guys see why actually I'm even talking about it, you will realize, oh my god, like this is so cool. And apparently that golden rule is fairly known in nature. If you guys wanted more information about that rule, Google it. There's tons of stuff out there which has great information about it. But again, I started applying this rule into my work, and that works just great. And as soon as I saw this, I said, well, this is great. I'm gonna be using this from now on, probably till I'll stop shooting headshots. So the last thing of the good composition is the balance, and you know, in this case, actually, what do we want to make sure that you know, the image has certain flow, and it doesn't have too much destructive things on the image, and that's what's gonna keep this balance actually work. And the one thing what I want to mention here as far as the balance goes, and this is actually what I've been seeing on so many other photographers' work, and I've been doing this you know, back in the days, those mistakes. And this is what I actually was saying at the beginning, that the way we look at images, our eyes are always drawn to the brightest point. So let's say you have an image which has some brighter points on the image than the eyes, and our eyes are just flying around the image, and it seems like, okay, we don't even know where we should look at, and then, you know, what's going on. So make sure that whenever you are try to make sure that the brightest points on the image are always the eyes. If you have some bokeh or something like this which is brighter, try to remove it, because it's gonna be out of balance and this is not gonna work. You will see that there's something wrong with that picture, and it's simply, you cannot really focus on the right point on the picture. So this is the one thing which I think it's really making our images out of the balance. But you know, if we have everything kind of put together properly, and you know, there is certain you know, the focal point is on the face, and the background is just the kind of filler which kind of complete the image, then you will see, you know, that's what's gonna work together. So let's summarize this whole thing. So as I said before, there's three different components, and this is again the focal elements, which in our case is the face and the eyes. Then we have the structure of the image. So basically what you want to do, you want to keep this subject, which well, is the person, off the center, and you want to follow the golden rule, which you guys seen some samples before, and you see why this whole thing works well. And the last thing is the balance, which is basically you want to make sure that you know, the brightest point on the image are the eyes, and the rest of it is basically filler of the image. But if we use basically the rule of making sure that the face is sharp and the rest of it is out of focus, then you know, that's all what you have to kind of know at this point, and then the rest of it you can start adding later on. I'll be trying to maybe create another vlog and explore this even deeper, but those are the basics you have to follow in order to compose this image the proper way. The rest of it you can just basically follow your imagination, and you can simply break some of those rules, and you have to try different things and see what works, what doesn't work. I actually have this entire process actually just put and applied to most of my work. Sometimes I try to actually push them a little bit more, but I found if I will keep those three different, I would say, elements which I was talking about in place, and I follow them, then the images, they always turn okay, and then I'm really happy with the final images and final results, because I know those rules, they really work, and they always make those images look great. So I hope that was helpful. If you guys have any additional questions or any additional things you would like to add or ask, please feel free to either leave the comment below or contact me through email or social media, whatever works best for you. And I will be looking forward to hear from you and you know, discuss this a little bit further. And if you guys have any own rules which you actually like and you use them, if you wouldn't mind, please share them with me. I'll be more than happy to try them in my workflow and see what the results are. That's always fascinating for me to hear some of those interesting informations which can improve my work. So I would like to wish you guys fantastic weekend. Stay tuned, and I will be chatting with you guys very shortly, and chatting about more interesting stuff about headshot photography. So see you soon, guys, and again, have a fantastic weekend. Bye bye.